Hello, this is Leroy Meadows, and I want to thank you for joining me today. Today we're doing an example at the end of Chapter 11, Decision Making and Relevant Information, and this is exercise 11-21 at the end of the chapter. So let's go ahead and take a look here. A company has inventory of 1,300 assorted parts for a line of missiles that has been discontinued. The inventory costs $71,000. These parts can either A, be remachined at a total cost of $27,050 and then sold for $31,500, or B, sold as scrap for $6,000. Which action is more profitable? Show your calculations. Okay, so let's take a look here and define what we're going to do. We're going to take a look with these inventory that's been discontinued, and we can remachine them and then sell them for a profit, or we can sell them as scrap for $6,000. So which actually is more profitable? Well, let's take a look at the situation. We know that historical costs that have already been incurred, are called sunk costs. And so these are irrelevant to the decision-making process. So the inventory that costs $71,000, we don't care about that. That's irrelevant to the situation. So let's take a look at the rest of the information. If we're going to remachine these, as that's one alternative, remember we're going to choose among alternatives, we want to run the numbers. So let's go ahead and take a look at the numbers here. If I remachine these this inventory, I'm going to sell it for $31,500. But it's going to cost me an additional $27,500 in order to be able to sell them for $31,500. So the additional cost, I want to take my future revenues, the additional revenues, and I'm going to subtract from that any costs incurred to generate that revenue. And in this case, I need to generate an additional $27,500 worth of costs in order to make $31,500 worth of revenue. So future revenues minus future costs is going to give me operating income of only $4,000. Now, let's take a look at scrapping them. If I scrap them, what am I doing? Well, I'm going to get $6,000 of scrap revenue. Do I have to do anything to scrap them? Do I have to invest in any additional costs in order to scrap them? No. So I can scrap the missiles or the missile inventory. There's no cost to do that. So in this case, if I scrap the inventory, I'll get $6,000. If I remachine the inventory, I'll get $31,500, but it's going to cost me $27,500. So the net increase in operating income is only $4,000. So in this case, I would rather scrap the inventory and not worry about remachining them, because it's actually going to be more profitable for me on my bottom line, on my operating income, to scrap the inventory instead of remachining them. Now let's take a look at scenario 2. A truck costing $102,500 and uninsured is wrecked its first day in use. I think that driver's not having a very good day. So a truck costing $102,500, not insured, wrecked the first day it's being used. Now we have two choices with that wrecked truck. We can either dispose of it for $14,000 cash and replace with a similar truck costing $105,500, or we can rebuild it for $86,000, the original one that was wrecked, and thus it'll look and operate brand new. So let's take a look here. If I have the choice to either replace the truck or rebuild the truck, what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to, under the, remember, future revenues or any relevant information, rather, is going to be future, but it's also going to differ among alternatives. So let's take a look here at the information here that is relevant. The truck costing $102,500 and is uninsured was wrecked its first day in use. Is that cost relevant? No, it's not. Why? Because it's a past cost, it's a sunk cost because it was already incurred. So therefore, that is irrelevant to our decision-making process. So let's take a look here. So we're going to look at the option first to replace the truck. So if I replace the truck, what is it going to cost me? It's going to cost me $105,500. But I'm actually going to be able to dispose of that old truck for $14,000. So it's really going to cost me how much to replace? It's going to cost me what? Let's see, $105,500 minus $14,000 salvage value, and that's going to cost me $91,500 if I decide to replace the truck. Now, if I rebuild the truck, it's going to cost me how much? It's going to cost me $86,000. So what is my total cost? What is it's going to take to rebuild the truck? Well, if I'm just going to spend the $86,000, I'm not going to dispose of that truck because I'm rebuilding it. So that $14,000 is irrelevant in the rebuilds alternative. And we're not going to buy another truck if we're just going to rebuild the old truck. So my total cost here to rebuild is $86,000. The total cost to replace is going to be $91,500. So what do I have here? Well, the difference in replacing the truck, let's see, $91,500 minus $86,000 cost to rebuild, $5,500. So here, the $5,500 is favored to rebuild. So we want to rebuild that truck. Why? Because the cost of rebuilding is $5,500 less than it would cost the net cost of replacing the original vehicle. So there's a big difference there. So we want to make sure we take that into consideration. Now, while we talked about the sunk cost in both example 1 and example 2, sunk costs are irrelevant. However, in this example 1, additional rework or additional remachining costs are relevant to the decision-making process. Why? Because in one scenario up here, I'm going to rework, and the other one, I'm not. What about the salvage value in requirement 2 or in scenario 2? Well, in scenario 2, this is relevant. Why? Because I'm going to dispose of it for $14,000 under one scenario, but not the other. So remember that relevant costs are future costs or future revenues that differ among alternatives, which is what we saw here in scenario 1, or costs that differ, the future costs that differ among alternatives. And this is an example of what we see in scenario 2. So we see here that it is cheaper to rebuild the truck in scenario 2 than it is to replace it. And then in example 1, scenario 1, we see it's more profitable to scrap the inventory than it is to remachine and then sell it. So this is Leroy Meadows. Thank you for joining me. Have a good day.